Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. We're going to continue working on the Tamiya Lotus Europa Special RC Car Kit. Today we're going to work on steps 16 through 18, which is going to focus on the front axles. And building them is the first thing we're going to do in step 16. In step 17, we're going to install the axles onto the chassis. In step 18, we're going to mount the upper chassis brace. Let's go back and start at step 16. As always, let's start by finding all the hardware in the left margin. These are the BB1 screws. These are the BA12 plastic bearings. I'm going to be using the ball bearings instead. These are the BB5 ball connectors. These are the BB7 ball connector nuts. These are the BB9 kingpins. These are the BB20 front wheel axles. And these are the BB21 snap pins. Now let's find the front uprights, F7 and F8. We'll also need to find these B11 spacers. The uprights are going to be on this tree down here. And the B11s were from here and here. Let's start on this side with F7. Let's make sure we grab the right one. When you hold it with the axle facing you, if the steering linkage is on the left side, then this is F7. On F8, the axle will be facing away from you. So let's start with F7. First thing we're going to do is put a bearing on each side of the hub. Just press them in as hard as you can with your fingers for now. Now we're going to grab the axle and squeeze some grease onto the neck here. Now let's thread it through the two bearings. You have to make sure the axle's centered. Then push it through as far as you can. And then pull it from the other end. If you do it right, you should be able to see the drive pin hole on the axle. Now we're going to use a snap pin to hold the axle in place. It should look something like this. Now let's put on the ball connector. We need to grab the BB5 ball connector and the B11 spacer. Put them together and thread it through this outside hole. And we're done with this side. Let's move on to F8. I'm going to start by pushing the bearings into each side of the hub. Put some grease on the axle. And thread it through the two bearings. Then lock in the axle with a snap pin. And screw in the ball connector. Let's move on to the hub carriers. We need to find parts F9 and F1. They're going to be on this tree, here, and here. We also need A6 and A8. Let's start by putting the kingpins on the top and bottom, then the upper arm ball connector. The ball connector is going to go on this side. You can tell that by this long slot right there, just like it shows in the manual. And we're going to line up the upright like this. Now we're ready for the kingpin screws. As always, make sure you have full range of motion. Now we're going to grab this extension plate that bolts onto the C-hub with this long screw. And it goes through this hole right here. And when this long screw goes through the C-hub, it's going to stick out on the other end to meet a ball connector. And when you're done, it should look like this. The contour of the extension plate should match the C-hub. Now let's screw on the ball connector. Make sure the extension is tight against the C-hub. Let's move on to the other side. Let's orient the pieces before we do anything else. The side with the long slot is facing us, just like the manual. Now we're going to line it up with the upright and put on the kingpin screws. Everything still moves freely. Good. Now let's bolt on the extension plate. I'm going to take this long screw and the extension. This I'm going to put a little grease on the tip of the screw to help it screw in a little bit easier. Alright, the extension is lined up and flush against the C-hub. The contour lines up. We're ready for the ball connector. I think we're done with step 16. Let's turn the page and go to step 17. Let's find this hardware first. Here are the BB8 screw pins. These are the BB12 threaded shafts. And these are the BB15 adjusters. Looks like we need to trim off 2 millimeters off the adjusters first. Then we'll build these steering links with a 4.5 millimeter gap between them. Let me cut these off the tree. Alright, let's trim the adjusters first. I'm going to use a ruler and utility knife to do this. There they are. Let's start building the steering links. It's real simple. We're just going to twist the adjusters onto the threaded shaft, and when we think we're getting close to 4.5 millimeter, we'll measure it with the caliper. Alright, one more twist to make sure the ball connectors are facing the right direction. This one's done. Let's do the other one. Both steering links are done. Let's bring in the chassis. We're going to mount the axles on the chassis first. So we have to figure out which side is which. So this brass ball stud is going to face the front of the car. We're going to line up this hole with the lower arm. We're going to line up the upright between this and that. And when it's set in place, we're going to secure it with a screw pin. We have to thread it through the arm and the C-hub all the way to the back. If you get stuck, you can try turning the screw pin. There we go. Let's finish it with a screwdriver. Let's put on the other side. Again, brass connector forward. And we're going to line up this part with that. And secure with a screw pin. Alright, and the next thing we need to do for step 17 is to snap on the steering links. Let's double check the direction of the ball connectors and see which one is left and right. Looks like this one's for the right side. One end connects to the ball connector on the top of the C-hub, and the other end snaps onto the one on the top plate. Repeat for the other side. Just one more thing, we need to snap the steering links onto the uprights. And the axles are installed onto the chassis. And we're done with step 17. Let's move on. For step 18, let's start by finding 7 of these BA6 screws. The urethane bumper, this E7 damper stay, and this B2 front chassis brace. So let's put on the damper stay. Make sure the piece is facing the correct direction, and we're going to place it here and fasten it with 2 screws on the underside. Make sure the damper stay is straight. Let's place the front bumper first. Just line up these 2 holes with these posts on the chassis. Then line up the front chassis brace. These 3 holes will match these 3 right here. Set that on top and fasten it with the remaining screws, including these 2. Alright, and we're done with step 18, and we'll end it right here. I hope you liked this video. If you got anything out of it, please drop a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.